And all right, I'll see you on the Malibu beach. Let's head over to California and welcome in our Malibu Ken for the day. He's not in Malibu. He's nearby, though, and that is our awesome friend, Jobob. Jobob, thank you for coming into the stream today. It doesn't look like you're on the Malibu beach.
Hey, can you let me know when we start this thing so I can get prepared?
Yeah, okay, yeah, we're started.
Oh, that was a bad joke that didn't land well at all.
You know what?
No,
You're,
I'm
up,
not
you're
at the
about to be a
beach.
dad. It was a good dad joke, so we'll appreciate it.
Yeah, I am not at the beach. I am in the dungeon here. To quickly introduce myself, I guess, because
Yeah,
I
let
would
us know who you
imagine
are
there's
if
lots
people
of
don't know.
well, there's probably a lot of new people going, what was that guy's name? Did she say Joe Bob? Like in California, not Mississippi? Yeah, I think I still probably am the only full-teethed Joe Bob this side of the Mississippi. I don't know. I don't even know how to introduce myself nowadays. I do a lot
Yeah,
of stuff. I'm
who the
mostly
heck are you, buddy?
well, so we were at a doctor's appointment today. My wife is 9 months pregnant, about to give birth any day now. And the doctor in the room today said, "What do you do?" And I said, "I am a professional smartass." And I think I
Pretty
did not
much.
lie to that person. And so yeah, I don't know. I commentate here and there, do some things. Uh, Isabel and I have been friends for what, 2 years, almost two
I
years
know.
now.
That actually
And then
feels so weird because in some ways I feel like I've known you for like 2 decades, and in other ways I feel like I met you like a month ago. So it's very bizarre.
well, what's this weird? It's this weird, and we've talked about this weird, like political commentator, and I don't even want to put us in that category, but like
Yeah.
commentary world where you like have really good friends that you only see like 2 or 3 times a year because you're just all in different places, and then you come together for an event, you hang out all weekend, and then you go away and you don't talk for a long time. That's just it's this weird. Yeah, I understand how you feel about the. Yeah, we've been friends forever, and also met last week.
I know. It's kind of bizarre, but we've done a lot of great work together with Turning Point USA. You've been on the stream before as a guest, but not for a long time. So we're glad to have you back. And you are starting a whole new venture lately with some comedy stuff, which I'm really excited about seeing.
Yeah.
You're a funny guy, believe it or not. Bad dad joke at the beginning that didn't land aside. But I'm just so delighted to call you a friend. And if you guys are not already following Joe Bob, everybody that we're live on with YouTube and Rumble and Getter and Locals and Facebook and everywhere, you can find him on the interwebs at his name. He's a really great guy, wonderful man trying to bring honest values and truth in a funny way back to the world, which we really desperately need. And usually we are on almost the same side of everything, I would say, Joe Bob. We look at the world a really similar way, but you posted a whole threads narrative essay the other day after you and Crystal, your wife, went to go see the Barbie movie, which was around the same time Brock and I went to go see. And I thought you had a lot of really interesting insights. So walk me through, why did you decide to go? What was your overall takeaway from the Barbie movie?
So first of all, we're generally on the same side of things, correct? Unless you are wrong. Uh,
Okay,
as far
come
as
on.
why I decided to go, I love that you think that I had any say in that matter. Crystal, my wife, is 9 months pregnant and said I want to go to the Barbie movie, so we went to the Barbie movie.
Okay, Joe
I
Bob, you're
think,
about to be a girl dad. You realize that this is like the next forever of your life. Like you have to go to
yeah,
every single one of these movies.
I'm all for it. I just did. I had no. Here's what I think. In just putting all of this in some sort of context, I think there was a lot of people, and by I think I mean I know that there was a lot of people. There was a lot of people that knew a lot about this movie before it was actually in theaters and before they actually saw it. I, on the other hand, found out about it like 3 weeks ago.
Old
Somebody,
man.
I was talking to. Oh, you know what? So I learned that there was a chance that Amy Schumer was going to play Barbie in an
Ugh.
upcoming Barbie movie.
Oh, that
I've
would have
now
been bad.
it would have been terrible. And I've now realized that that was obviously a marketing ploy. But in my head, when I heard about that, I was like, oh, okay, they're starting to film a Barbie movie. Maybe it'll be out by 2025. I had no idea that it was coming out this summer. And that attitude carried me all the way through until we were sitting in the movie theater. I had no preconceptions. I had no
Okay, I like that
opinions.
actually though. I tried really hard to avoid it, but you know me, I am a Gen Zer, so I spend a lot of time on TikTok, and like my entire TikTok for you page was everything Barbie.
Yeah.
So I kind of knew a little bit about what was going to happen. I had a preview of the Ken song. I had a preview of the sets and the dancing, like a little bit of that. But I had no realm of concept at all for the actual substance of the movie. And I specifically avoided watching everybody's reviews that started pouring in, like
Yeah.
Ben Shapiro's. Brett Cooper put hers out well before I did a review. Allie Beth Stuckey put out a review about whether Barbie was like secretly based. And I saw all the titles, but I was like, I'm not watching them.
Yeah. Well, did we mention there's clearly going to be spoilers on this? I feel like
Oh, yeah, we
that's a
probably
yeah.
should. Thank you for the reminder on that. It's been a chaotic week. There are about to be mega spoilers for this movie. If you really want to go see it and you want to be surprised, please come join us later. But if you need this as a good reason to go or not to go, please hang out. But we're about to spoil this entire movie for you. Okay, please continue. So you went to the movie.
Yeah, I went to the movie, and so this is how much I didn't know about this. Within, what is it? I don't know, scene 2, I saw what's on the screen and I said, "Oh, Ryan Gosling's in this movie." I had
Seriously?
I had no
How did
idea.
you escape the Barbie marketing?
I don't know. And maybe this is, maybe I'm already in dad land where you just like are in a bubble for like 25 years and then you emerge
I
from the
guess,
bubble
yeah.
after your kids go to college and you're like, what is the world now? But yeah, we've been doing house projects, and I also, we don't go see movies. The last, I just googled this. The last movie that we saw was The Jungle Cruise in 2021. So like,
Oh my gosh, yeah.
it's been 2 years since we've gone to movie theaters. I am not the target demographic for movie marketing firms. And so
Fair
yeah,
enough.
I had no preconceived notions. I obviously had heard beforehand that there were people in our line of work that said it sucked. And you know, I hate to say that I just kind of assumed that that was going to happen regardless of whether or not it sucks. So that had zero bearing on what I thought of it going into it. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Well, first of all, what are your like thoughts? You said you wanted to talk about the first 15 minutes
Yeah,
of it. So
so
like, if
I
we
think
go, yeah.
you, if it's fair for me to say, you overall thought that Barbie was a really great movie, and that generally speaking had underlying tones of conservative values. Is that fair?
I don't know if I would say it was really great. I just didn't think it was nearly as bad as a lot of people thought it was. I also like quirky movies. So if I'm saying I liked it, chances are the general public probably won't. So
Okay,
I know that about myself and my movie taste.
fair
But
enough.
I
Fair enough.
wouldn't say it's a great movie, but I did enjoy it.
And so your threads thing that I saw, which is why I invited you to come on for this conversation, was about how there were like sneaky anti-woke themes woven into the Barbie plotline, which I thought was a really interesting takeaway that you took away. I took away the exact opposite approach to that, and was actually really disappointed with how the movie unraveled. So I guess the first things that I want to just say up front are I really, really, really wanted to love this movie. I was not the biggest Barbie girl. My mom just put in our live chat, I kept the old Barbie collection from when you and your sisters were young. I love them. I don't remember having that many Barbies, Mom, but maybe I'm just wrong. We were more of an American Girl doll family, and I think that was a little bit more generational. Like the solid 90s kids were like really Barbie people. The solid 2000s kids were really American Girl people, and that's just more of a differentiation there. But Mattel did announce today that they're making movies of like tons of other toys and games, including American Girl. So I'm like absolutely stoked for that. If they ruin that, I will be absolutely devastated. But I really wanted to like this movie. I went through a pretty extreme tomboy phase as a kid, but really am like a girly girl. I loved Barbie. I think the messaging of Barbie was really wonderful growing up, that little girls can grow up to be whoever they want to be, that you can see yourself as an astronaut, as a brain surgeon, as the president of the United States. And that was really radical at the time when Barbie was invented and introduced as a toy, right? That was radical feminism. But today, that's just kind of common sense America and a meritocracy and being able to work your way into making your dreams turn into a reality. And that was really inspiring for me. So when I saw all of the marketing for the film, kind of about that there was a Dr. Barbie and there was a President Barbie and there were all these different Barbies, I thought, how unbelievably cool, because we didn't really have movies like that when I was young. Barbie movies when we were little were also really good, but it was like the animated Princess and the Pauper movie, and it was all like princess related. It wasn't career driven or like more modern and updated to what you would see women doing and succeeding in America today. And by all intents and purposes, Barbie's dream as a brand has come true. We have a female vice president of the United States. A third of the Supreme Court are women. More women are graduating from STEM programs and soon every college major than men. Women are more likely to be hired for the same job or promoted for the same job than men. We have female brain surgeons and astronauts. The youngest astronaut in American history is an 18-year-old girl right now, and she is so unbelievably cool. So, like, women are doing all of the things, and that was a time when Barbie was introduced that none of those things would have been possible, but it is possible, and it's happening and thriving today in America. So I thought it was going to be like a huge celebration of that and might be feminist in like the traditional sense. And so I was excited to see that because I think I would consider myself to be like pro woman in a more traditional first wave feminism sense, but feminism has just gotten so out of control in celebrating men that it's just like come full circle for me. And the marketing was top tier. All of the sponsored content that I saw on my TikTok, all of the sponsored content that I saw on my Instagram, absolutely loved. So I sat down in the theater, everyone dressed up in hot pink. Like literally everyone around me in the theater was dressed to the nines in hot pink. There was not a single seat available left in the theater for a ticket. It was a humongous movie theater and every seat was taken. And everybody was ecstatic when it first came on. The first 15 minutes, I was glued to the screen. I was laughing. I was tearing up. The dance moves, the choreography, the set design, the music, like all of the jokes landed. All of it was so cute and my entire childhood imagination come to life until they got to the real world and then it all started unraveling for me. So I feel like if the Barbie land concept would have been fleshed out a little bit more, and we'll talk a little bit more about this as we unpack, and that theme and vibe of the first 15 minutes had lasted through the entire, hour and 45, hour and 55 minute screen time, I would have been hooked the entire time and absolutely loved it. But they started to lose me when the story went in a million different directions and there was like 25 competing messages and different themes, some of which were really woke, some of which weren't, but they were all like competing with each other for the overall message of the movie. There was absolutely no storyline really or like plot that I could consistently follow because everything kept changing like every 3 minutes. And they kept misusing this one particular word about 50,000 times. And the first time they said it, I looked at Brock right next to me and we both kind of went, and then by the end we were like, oh my God, we just got up and left at the end of the movie. We were like, I can't even do this. And that word was patriarchy. So when they started introducing some of these themes, Jobob, what was like your immediate reaction? Did you just think like, yeah, whatever?
Well, no, I thought it was hilariously overplayed. Like when you first see Mattel, right, and Will Ferrell and the group of like CEOs or whatever their board of directors, whatever it is, like I thought it was like jokey and like humorous and
Like
in
satire
some way,
almost.
yeah, and in some way, I kind of thought it was more making fun of the stereotypical boardroom at a Fortune 500 company, not necessarily saying this is what all of the companies are. It's the joke is like a bunch of rich old white guys in boardrooms, and that's what it is. Like, I kind of thought it was humorous of like,
Okay, so I get that, and I get that that would be a joke, but for me, it just felt so confusing because the whole actual concept, or I thought anyway, was that Barbie and Ken have to leave this fantasy Barbie land to go to the
yeah,
real world, and then they're smacked with reality on the ass, literally. I mean, they smack her on the ass, but in the face, right? They're like completely smacked with reality, and they have to confront that, and she learns to cry, and she experiences being hurt, and the
hmm
sunshine, and like all of these things that are like difficult to experience as a human being. The boardroom thing and the Will Ferrell character and like the Mattel company in the perfect weird Willy Wonka vibe cubicles, it just felt so fantasy to me. It didn't feel real world. It felt like you were immediately transported back to Barbie land and that they weren't in the real world anymore, which doesn't make any sense from a plot perspective.
yeah, but it's a Barbie movie. It's not like we're going in between fantasy world and real world. The real world is probably not going to look very realistic too when you have real life size plastic figures walking around. I just so like okay, so another moment when they got into the real world that I can understand how people would be like, ugh. But when what was the little girl's name? I forget her name in the
Sasha.
actual Sasha. When
Which
Barbie
plot
finally,
twist? Brock showed me a meme today, or like a TikTok or something. The
Mhm.
names of the four girls, I didn't pick up on this, at the lunch table at the middle school, like the little girl she was supposed to go find and her
Okay.
friends, are the names of the four original Bratz dolls, and they look like the Bratz dolls. So when they're like fighting Barbie and like
Oh,
telling her she's awful, they're being Bratz, literally, which I didn't know. I wish they would have translated that a little bit
that
better.
that's so funny.
Yeah.
So okay, so back on the track of like Barbie meeting this girl, right? I think one of the big lines that everybody like was upset about is the little girl calls Barbie a fascist, which is a big buzzword nowadays. Okay, so I'm curious,
It
what did you
made
think
me
of
mad.
why?
Because
Why did it make you mad?
Barbie, if you okay, maybe this is because I got in a huge argument with another TikToker the other day that went mega viral, that she was saying all conservatives are fascists today, and I debunked that, and
Okay.
then she tried to debunk me, and it just turned into this whole Gen Z argument about fascism. Barbie, ultimate capitalist utopia Barbie, selling
Yes.
dreams to children through a plastic doll with completely impossible proportions of feet and boobs, is the opposite of fascism, like the literal opposite. But when a parent takes their kid to go see this movie and the punk rock cool middle school girl is like, "You're a fascist, F you, Barbie, we don't want to play with you anymore, you're a Ron DeSantis fascist," then that's what's going to click in their brain. They lack the critical thinking to understand that.
Oh, see, maybe this is me being an old fart, but I looked at that as like, okay, they're mocking the idea that middle schoolers and kids these days don't have any idea what these words mean. And at the end of the movie, there she's the biggest transformational character, I think, in my opinion. And so at the beginning, she was dumb and wrong, as most middle school girls are about political takes.
Not wrong
She was
about
dumb.
everything, really, if I remember my period of middle school.
and boys too. Middle schoolers in general, generally speaking, do not trust them on anything they say. And so, in my view of it, in the whole scope of the movie, but also in that moment right there, I was like, oh, this is funny. They're like leaning into the fact that people use these words that they have no idea what they mean, and then
Interesting.
ultimately come around to going, oh, so, and regardless of whether or not they redefined the term fascist or brought it back up again, I looked at that as okay, like they're pointing out the fact that the dumb middle schooler is dumb and doesn't know what these things mean. And I kind of feel like a lot of those types of themes for me were reiterated, like the whole idea of like the patriarchy. There's a huge montage of Ryan Gosling going around trying to get jobs specifically because he's a man, and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Like to me, that reinforced the whole like, yeah, you have to work at something and try and develop a skill and do all of the things that are required of you for that job in particular. You can't just go and like say, I am a man and therefore I should have this job, as a
Okay,
lot of people tend to think in the modern day.
so I'm glad you brought that up because I had the same reaction to that little montage. He tries to go get a job at like a major business corporation and they tell him, "Do you
Mhm.
have an MBA? Are you going to grad school? Do you even have a college degree?" And he's like, "No." Then he tries to go into a doctor's office and wants to perform an appendectomy just because he's a man. And the female surgeon is like, "No." And he's like, "I need to talk to a doctor." And she says, "I am the doctor." Like, you're talking to the doctor. And that part was a little funny. But then what didn't make sense to me, and I guess this goes back to the million different competing messages, is that he goes back to the Barbie land to
Mhm.
institute the patriarchy, which he
Mm.
thinks is like men being in charge of everything, men running everything, women being slaves in slutty maid costumes, because that's what that meant, I guess, and horses everywhere. Where the horses came from, I don't know, but it was a cute touch as a horse girl myself. But then he says, in Century City in LA, they figured this out. They did patriarchy right. When he like stands up on the Hummer and Barbie's thinking, "What is going on? Like, explain to me what's going on." He's like, "They had things right in Century City." And I think what he's referring to is largely the Mattel company, that they were all men in the corporate boardroom and the assistant was the woman. And that's what he wanted to mirror. But I didn't understand how simultaneously you could have this montage that's saying, "No, you can't do that because we don't live in a
Yeah.
patriarchy. You can't just do things because you're a man." But then also he comes back to the fake world and is like, "They did it right in the real world. They have a patriarchy, so we have to have one now."
I think I mean again, this is up for interpretation, which I feel like all movies are and should be. I looked at that more as he found a world where men weren't uh, weren't women of the 40s and 30s and of old America, where you kind of just weren't seen as having any sort of place in society other than being in the home. Obviously, the real world has come a long way since then. And in the Barbie world, it was just a role reversal. Like the Barbies were all of the things. And so again, I don't know, up for interpretation, but I think Ken goes into the real world and sees a bunch of men in charge, but also just sees that men have a place at all in society, and
Yeah.
then goes back to Barbie Land and does it hilariously wrong, which I think is there was okay. Not to jump onto another like thing,
No, jump
but
away.
well, so
I told
okay,
people
so
this would be the most chaotic movie review of all time because I know how you and I have conversations. So please feel free to jump to whatever.
well, so okay, so they get back to Barbie Land, and the Kens have taken over, and all of that sort of stuff, and you can look at that as good or bad or just entertainment. But I thought one of the more interesting components to it that I feel like was funny, was true, and also like in my opinion, a pretty based take on things is when the Kens were like, no, we want Barbies to be our casual, long distance, low commitment, low expectation girlfriends. And the Barbies were like, no, like we don't want that. And
Well, no,
and
they didn't say that at first. What did
yeah,
they
well
say at first?
they got
They
brainwashed
were
into thinking like,
brainwashed, which
yeah,
I thought the brainwashing was a commentary about committed like girls that are servant loving to their husbands and to their boyfriends, that like are submissive to their husbands, that they're brainwashed, so they need to be deprogrammed by the
oh,
awake
interesting.
woke girls. That's how I took that, but I could have interpreted it differently.
No, and that kind of that makes sense. I look at it through so we've talked about this a little bit, maybe I don't actually know, but like I am wow, about to get very deep and philosophical.
Ooh, we
I
love
I
it.
have I have been excited to have a girl. Like I don't know where the stereotypes come from, but like men want to have boys. I guess like that's something that I've heard. But like I've always wanted a girl because I think raising strong I don't want to use the cliche, but like
Strong,
strong,
independent
independent women,
women.
I think that's so much more important to a society than,
Hmm.
doing it well is more difficult, probably takes more effort, and is more important to the social structure of the society that we live in. That I want that responsibility. And I don't mean to say that like boys are easy to raise. That's not what I'm saying. I think I'm saying ultimately in the longevity of life, I believe that women are the conscience of the culture. Men will
Yeah.
do whatever they can so long as women let them get away with it. And I think that was like a for me looking at it through that lens, it
Interesting.
was like men want these low commitment girlfriends who live far away and all that sort of stuff. And the second that the Barbies or just women in general can say no, like absolutely not, men will adjust their behavior accordingly. I've noticed
Okay,
that.
that's actually so interesting. I like
Go,
this take a lot now that I'm thinking critically about it.
but it's like you look at the boundaries set up by society. All and I'm generalizing here. This is not like a full like I believe this 100%. But the majority of the positive boundaries that keep society from going off the rails in a lot of ways are instituted by women. Like
Hmm,
who drags their spouse to church every week? Is it the husbands and the dads going to church every week, or is it the moms and the wives going to church every week?
that's
And
fair.
countless other countless other instances, which I'm having trouble coming up with examples, but I just think that that's like a kind of a thing. I think like Candace said it. Candace said something along the lines of like men run the world, but women control men, or something like not
Okay, have
control.
you seen legendary film My Big Fat Greek Wedding?
Yes.
Obviously, because you
Oh, of
have
course.
taste. The man is the head of the house, but the woman is the neck, and she
Yeah.
can turn the head any way she wants to.
Yeah. Yeah. And like women, like strong, morally convicted women can manipulate is not the right word, but
Direct. Yeah.
guide the man who like I look at like our household. I the way that my brain works goes in 9,000 different directions all at once, all in full speed. Like I am trying to put out music. I'm trying to finish the windows in our super old wooden house. I'm trying to book a comedy tour. I'm trying to do all of these things. And I don't have the guardrails that I think my wife has. And,
Mm.
she's pretty active as well. But there are instances where she'll be like, "You've been working all day. You've been doing this all day. Like, let's sit down and eat dinner." Or, "I haven't seen you all day." And without that sort of thing, and I understand that this is a small kind of nuanced or
Version of
small
that,
little
yeah.
little example of this, but like without that sort of thing, I would just be doing what I wanted to do all the time, always.
So
Like,
you
and
think the Barbie movie, when at the end there they kind of like reverse everything back and the women are like, no, you need
mhm.
boundaries? That's kind of an example of that.
Yeah, well, I think women are just better at setting moral and societal boundaries that men would otherwise breach without even thinking about it.
You know, that's really interesting that you say that because I think outside of the context of this film review, I would have had the exact same thought and I wouldn't have tied those two things together at all. I say all the time that like God created women second, obviously, because men can't survive on their own and like they need somebody to help guide them a little bit, and that
Mhm.
women have this beautiful gift of intuition that men really don't have, that is more tied towards the larger societal impact and the humanity impact and the empathy impact that sometimes can be forgotten by men. So I've said that all the time in like other
Mhm.
videos and other conversations, but that's so interesting. I wouldn't have taken that away from my first watching of this movie. So I'll say up front too, I am the first person always to admit like I was wrong about something or I'm changing my mind about something.
Yeah,
I think this movie has a lot of layers that I just have yet really to unpack because there was so many different tiny storylines within the big
yeah.
storyline.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily think it's wrong at all. I just think that's I look at things I don't know, everybody looks at things through different lenses. And like going into like raising a young girl, like everything in my world is looked at through that lens
Yeah.
currently at the moment. So like I think the casual low commitment long distance girlfriend thing was honestly could have been a throwaway line. It's funny, it's accurate, and it's just kind of a jokey thing that kind of doesn't exist. But they said it like 3 or 4, maybe 5 times, and like to me, in the context and the period of life that I'm in right now, looking through the lens of a soon to be girl dad, like I was like, get rid of that. Like get rid of that male mentality
Yeah.
of like we just get to do this because. And that's not at all trying to say get rid of masculinity as a whole, but there are components to just
I wouldn't even
male.
tie that to masculinity. I think I would just tie
Yeah.
that to like modern relationship culture because
Yeah.
that is what we're selling people on that's going to make them happy, but it really doesn't make them happy.
No, yeah, I agree, and that's how I saw that particular part. And then, fast forwarding a couple frames later to that big speech that was America Ferrera. Is that her
Yeah,
name?
that's what I wanted to
What?
talk about next. So I'm glad you brought
Yeah.
that up. So America Ferrera's in this movie. First of all, she looks amazing. She looks really, really good. So kudos to her. But she's like the previous owner of this Barbie, the mom of the little girl. Barbie has to come to the real world to help her deal with her emotions of like letting go of
Hmm.
her daughter and some grown up transformations that she's going through. And then they end up going back to the Barbie land with Barbie and trying to figure out what went wrong when all the Kens took over and instituted patriarchy and horses. And so after all the Barbies start basically shutting down and like I don't have any purpose for anything, and then they have to deprogram all the other Barbies, which I thought was a little much and didn't make a lot of sense to me. And I did think that was a
Yeah.
commentary on conservative women who have male partnerships, which I thought was interesting because the Barbies end up single at the end. That was the twist ending is like,
Huh.
well, you don't have to be like made for me, Ken. You go do your own thing. I'm going to go do my own thing. So I thought that was a commentary on like marriage
Okay.
being bad or like partnership being bad, and men and women should just go do their own things, which I do not want to see as the end all be all solution for society. But while they're like navigating all of this, America Ferrera goes into this long monologue, and it ends up being the most viewed thing on my TikTok For You page right now. Every few videos I scroll through, and it's somebody in the movie theater videoing this monologue, and then
Mm.
somebody duetting it, being like, oh my God, this is about my life. And the monologue is basically like, you as a woman in modern day in the real world, you just never can be enough, but then sometimes you're too much at the same time, and you're too pretty but you're not pretty enough, and you're too skinny but you're also too fat, and you're too successful but you're not successful enough, and it's all because of men. Wham. And I listened to this monologue, and all these
Interesting.
women sitting around me in the movie theater are literally crying. Like I hear sniffles everywhere, and I'm like, that is objectively just not true. Like if you think that that is about your life, that's a problem with you, not a larger problem with society. Like, you have to find meaning and confidence and everything in yourself instead of seeking that validation from everyone else. Like, if you constantly seek external validation from our very broken world that sucks, of course you're
Mhm.
never going to be content or happy with yourself. That is all the wrong advice to give to women who do feel like I don't fit in, or I'm not enough, or I'm too much, and have these thoughts in their mind. But then their solution was like, it's all men's fault. Let's just kick all the men out from any position of leadership or power in society, and then we'll feel better about ourselves.
Is is that how that monologue concluded? Because
Yes.
because what I took the one of the latter lines in it was something along the lines of like, it should be okay if a woman wants to just be a mom, or just wants to be a mom and the president, or wants to be a mom and not the president.
I
Like, that's
liked
what I
that
took out
line
of
a
it.
lot, but then the ending solution to all of that was like, the whole conflict was the Kens were voting to change the Constitution so that women could never get elected again. So they were going to like confuse and trick all the Kens to fight each other and go do their Malibu beach off instead of take on actual leadership and power in society so that they could retain all of the power. And they wanted to like snake it all back from the men. So their solution was, let's go alienate all of the men, take all of the important leadership positions back for women, and not let men have a substantive role in how our society is run. And that's
Hmm.
the solution to how we're feeling discontent with ourselves right now.
Interesting. I yeah,
Because I
I
liked
think I
that line. I really liked that
well,
line.
no,
I thought that was great.
but I also I like, did you catch too the ending in Barbie Land where they said something along the lines of like, maybe someday the Kens can be where the Barbies are today in
Okay,
the real world.
I want to touch on that, but let's talk about the monologue first because that's a whole different conversation that I have in my
Okay.
list because I think that's important. Yeah.
Well, I think it ties together, but yeah, go ahead.
um
What else do you have in the monologue? Because I don't know.
So
I
I
didn't.
just I just thought it was really bad advice, right? Like you're speaking to legitimate feelings that women do experience all the time. That like, I don't fit in, I'm not pretty, I'm comparing myself to other people.
Mhm.
I could be way more successful, I could be way more nice, I could fit in better with my friends, I could get invited to more things. Like, why do people not like me? Or when I look in the mirror, I'm too skinny, but I'm also too fat. Like, oh my god, I hate this. And so that is true of like the nature of a woman's brain, and I think does speak
Yeah.
to how we view the world versus men, that you guys can like put things in one box and just deal with it and then move on, and we can't. It all kind of gets jumbled in our minds. But to say that the only solutions for that are A, to seek external validation from the world instead of finding the confidence in yourself seemed like really bad advice to me, to be honest.
Okay. I
And B, that like you have to have a society without legitimate gender equality to achieve that also felt really bizarre to me because that's just not true.
Maybe I missed all of that because I didn't zone in on that at all. I just liked the part where she effectively resorts back to what feminism should be, as opposed to this like radical like down with men thing. And I
Yeah.
don't, maybe did she do like a triple reverse in that? Because I heard, and what
No, I
stuck out
just
in my
took that
mind.
away from like the next steps in the plot where they go deprogram all the stupid man-loving Barbies and then they trick all the Kens, and then it segues into this point that you just brought up. So, at the very very end of the movie, they
Mhm.
basically say, Barbie says, we can't go back to the way things were. Things just need to be different now. I'm going to go find who I am. Ken, you need to go find who you are. You're not just Ken. You need to like figure out who you are alone. And in the meantime, we're gonna like take back our society and make this Barbie land again instead of Kendom, which is what they were calling it. And the Barbie president, who was beautiful and very cute, adorable, and she looks like the Barbie president doll, which was adorable, says, okay, well, we're going back to our thing, and all the doctors are gonna be Barbies again, and the female president is gonna be existing again as Barbie president, and our Supreme Court is gonna be women again. And one of the Kens asks, Madam President, can we have a
Yeah.
seat on your Supreme Court? And she looks at him and laughs and says, no. And then she goes, maybe someday, but definitely not today. But we might think about giving you like a district court
Yeah.
judge position. That might be enough for you, which I guess was their way of saying that gender inequality more accurately mirrors the real world, and that the way I interpreted this was they were trying to make a commentary that women have to struggle for long periods of time to obtain the same positions as men in society, that it took women hundreds more years to earn the vote and hundreds more years to have different careers and all of these things. And so men in Barbie land would have to be patient to attain that, the same way women in the real world were patient to attain that. But that's just not accurately mirroring the society that we live in today. Like, as I mentioned, women are brain surgeons and astronauts and the vice president. Like, you don't need to wait to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say, but that was the case. Like it took a long time to get to equal footing in terms of just being viewed at how you do your job in society. Like I don't if the Barbie land is set in, I don't know, the early 1900s, and that's what it takes a long time for them to. Now, if you're comparing it to the modern day and modern society, yeah, that doesn't make any sense at all.
Which I think
But
is the point. It is supposed to be a reflection of modern society. Or
so
like
then
a
why did
more
they say?
ideal, like fantasy version of modern society.
Well, then why did they say the Kens can work themselves to be at a place where women in the real world are now?
I don't
As
know.
like
See, it doesn't make
basically
any
saying,
sense.
well, basically saying that like that women in modern society are like can do anything, which I believe. And the what I would say is like it seemed like to me how it clicked in my head was like, okay, the Barbie land fantasy, whatever it is like setting itself back in the early 1900s, and the Kens have a long way to go to achieve equality, much like the timeline of modern society. Modern society is just way ahead of them.
Okay, I mean, I could appreciate the writing of that, but then why? If
I
you
don't know.
have the vehicle to institute legitimate gender equality today, why reinstitute the struggle of inequality
So
just
here's
because?
this. Maybe I am digging into this way too deep. But up until now, the Kens were all dumb. And the Barbies were the ones that were the doctors and lawyers and presidents and all that sort of stuff. And maybe it's that the Kens just need some time to catch up intellectually because they haven't been doing it for a long time. Like, I don't know.
I
That's
love that
probably
we are having a deep philosophical conversation about the intellectual capacity of plastic dolls right now. I just like, who would have put that in our 2023
well,
bingo
but
card? I
this
just love that so much.
and I
Okay, maybe.
I
Maybe.
don't
I
stand
just
by
thought
that, by the
it
way. That's
seemed like a reach, to be honest. And it
it
seemed
is. Yeah.
confusing because if the whole movie, up until the very end, was parallel timelines, parallel universes of this fantasy land and the
Oh,
real world, and now you're trying to set one back,
I
why?
see. I don't think I looked at it as parallel the whole time. Like I
Interesting.
thought it was like a different, not a different time period, because obviously you have all of the amenities in the Barbie land that you do in the real world, but just in terms of like where society is and where culture is, and how it's viewed differently depending on again, time is probably not the best term. It's probably like maturity of the culture. Like the
Interesting.
real world
Okay.
is a real mature culture, whereas the Barbie land is still like this floofy teenage dumb culture where everybody's wrong about a lot of things because they don't know any better. I don't know. That just kind of
Interesting.
yeah. I don't think in my head at least, and I could be wrong here. I don't think I ever equated Barbie land and the real world to be living in simultaneous realities of like cultural slash societal maturity. I kind of always thought the Barbie land was like
Outside of
out of
time and space, kind
yeah,
of.
outside of time and space and like operating
Interesting.
on a different system. But so okay, so what was the this I feel like I don't know, could probably be universally agreed on. Was Ruth Handler at the very end not super based?
She was
Like
cool. I really liked her. And so, fun fact, Ruth Handler, if you guys don't know who that is, she is the founder of Barbie. Her daughter, Barbara, is who she named Barbie after. She's from Colorado. Whoop, whoop, represent. And in the movie, when Barbie is in the real world and she sits down on the park bench and is like observing all the people and people watching, and she learns how to cry, and she looks over at the old woman and says, "You're so beautiful." That's Barbara Handler. That's who Barbie was
oh,
named after. So, very cool that that made it into the
yeah.
film. But Ruth Handler at the end talks about how life is really complicated and beautiful, and she had a lot of beautiful things to say there. But then she's also just drops, "Oh yeah, Mattel took the company from me after I had insane tax evasion," and I was like, "Based Ruth."
Yeah, like that's the best. Like a grandmother who wants to make little girls happy and also fighting the IRS for tax evasion. Like,
Worthy causes. Worthy causes.
can
Okay,
you
I got two more
imagine?
things to ask you about, and then just generally want to zoom out
Okay.
to the kind of manufactured outrage that I think we've seen about this. First, I think a lot of people were really upset with the very opening scene of the movie where there's like a voiceover monologue
Oh, yeah.
of little girls playing with baby dolls, and how since the dawn of time there's always been dolls, but those dolls were always baby dolls until Barbie came along. And then the little
Mhm.
girls are like smashing their glass baby dolls and they're exploding everywhere. And a lot of conservative commentators took that scene as like destroying motherhood, based on what was included in the America Ferrera monologue of like it's totally beautiful to just want to be a mom or be a mom
Mhm.
and the president of the United States. Like those things aren't mutually exclusive. I thought that was a huge reach, and I don't think that they were like hating on motherhood or even hating on baby dolls. It was just a commentary of Barbie being introduced at the time of baby dolls. So I wanted to get your take on that.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really have a problem with it at all. I can see, I guess, theoretically how somebody could get there of like, well, you think motherhood is bad. I'm like, I don't know. I don't look at the world that way. I looked at it as, yeah, like for thousands of years, women have been seen in a lot of cases just as mothers, and that's it.
Yeah.
And to break that mold doesn't mean that you're smashing motherhood. You're just saying you're adding more toppings to the pizza.
Hmm.
And like that, I didn't think that that was like, I don't know. It didn't. I didn't. It had zero effect on me. I was like, okay, this is what I kind of expected in the opening of this movie. Like old school dolls, and the Barbie comes along, and like I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. In theory, I can see how people got there, but like, I'm not buying it.
I thought it was a little bit of a reach when people said that, and it
Yeah,
felt to me like you were just trying to do like viral content if you said that versus actually unpacking the meaning. But that was just me. The one
yeah.
thing that I had a huge, like, groan out loud, frustrating moment with, and this is the last part of the plot that we'll talk about, was the very, very end of the movie. Spoilers, huge spoilers, which we've already been dropping this whole time. But Barbie decides to go back to the real world and like be a person, and she adopts the name of Barbara Handler, who Barbie was named after,
Hmm.
and decides to go experience real life, knowing she's going to die, knowing that she has to go through all the struggles of humanity. And at the very end, she piles in the car with America Ferrera and her daughter and the husband that we didn't really ever see except for one other scene, so that was a little weird. And they drop her off and they're like, okay, you're going to do great. Everything's going to be great. Have so much fun. Call us when you're done and we'll come pick you up. And in my mind, based on the story arc, based on everything that Ruth Handler had told Barbie in the fantasy land, I expected Barbie to go do her thing, be a CEO, maybe go be the Mattel CEO because they were all men and that was a patriarchy at the company that they needed to resolve. I thought maybe America Ferrera's character would become the CEO of Mattel if Barbie didn't, but like in some capacity, Barbie's gonna go be a girl boss and like do her working girl thing, and that's that. And instead, she goes into a waiting room for something and they ask her to check in. She says, my name is Barbara Handler. And they say, why are you here? And she says, I'm here for my gynecology appointment. And that's how the movie ended. That was the ending scene. So they spent the entire movie, including an overt scene where she tells construction workers hitting on her that she doesn't have genitals because they don't have genitals as dolls. And that's not what makes a woman, to then the very last message of the movie saying, oh, now I'm a real woman because I have a vagina. But also, apparently, you don't need to have a vagina to be a woman. They had a trans Barbie. They weren't very overt about saying it, but the redhead Dr.
Yeah.
Barbie is a
Okay.
pretty prominent trans actor. So they made this whole movie about how your genitals don't define you, only to say, women need to go to the gynecologist, which I guess is a good message. But then on the press tour, they would have said, oh no, anyone can be a woman. It's just about how you feel. So that was
Yeah.
wildly frustrating for me.
Well, I think I didn't. I don't know. I loved the ending of that. There's the joke that you're referring to is at the beginning where they're talking to construction workers. I don't have genitals. I thought that was just a funny joke. I don't know if they were making any commentary other than the construction workers go, never mind. I thought it was just kind of like, yeah, Barbies don't have the plastic dolls don't come.
Ken said he did, to his credit. So
Yeah, but at the very end, like I I I don't know, and maybe I thought about this too much afterward, but I was like, I really liked the fact that Nobody became the CEO of Mattel. Nobody did this.
Hmm.
She went to the doctor because that's what life is. Like if you're
Hmm.
looking at just the real world and what life is, it isn't your like upward mobility in the company that you're working at. It isn't taking a company public or being the CEO or this. It's laundry. It's like doing
Hmm.
laundry and cleaning dishes. And if you can enjoy those things with hopefully the significant other that you choose, that is life. That's more of your life
Hmm.
than your career or whatever it is. Like life is laundry. And so I love I liked the fact that like I'm here to see my gynecologist. Like if that isn't life, like what is? If that isn't more indicative of the real world as opposed to like this Barbie fantasy land that she came from, like I don't know what is. I couldn't really think of a better way to end it, in my opinion. But
I
I don't
like
know.
that perspective, and that's not one I would have originally had, but it reminds me of a Jordan Peterson quote that I've seen go pretty viral on TikTok the last few weeks, that life is your spouse welcoming you home when you come home from work,
Yeah,
and how you get ready for bed, and how you wake up in the morning, and like the little things that you don't realize that adds up to be so much more than the big moments or your wedding day or a big promotion in your career or
yeah,
something like that. So I actually really do appreciate that now. And again, I am the first person to always admit I refuse to have an opinion on day one of something. I think it's hugely mistaken to have a huge opinion on day one of something. The more I unpack this, the more I like the movie. I think it was frustrating because just at the surface level, while you were watching it, you listened to the word patriarchy easily 50,000
totally.
times in this movie. And all of the like, yes, queen, gays and gals were in the theater like, yes, Barbie, you don't need no man. And frankly, I thought the only saving redemption from a really big lack of a cohesive plot were the moments with Ken. Those were like by far the best moments of the
Yeah.
entire movie. Ryan Gosling deserves a freaking Oscar for the I'm Just Ken song. Oh my word, it is so good. I've been singing it around my house for like several days at this point. But ultimately, the most important thing is, I think I want to say like a double-edged sword here. A, it is just a movie, right? Like you don't need
Yeah.
to have this movie impact your entire worldview. But at the same time, it's a movie, and it's the highest grossing movie of
Yeah.
2023. It broke all of the box office records. Millions upon millions upon millions of people are seeing clips of this movie and commentary about the movie on social media. And so in some ways it is impacting culture. And so I see a lot of comments on my social media and everything that like, "Oh, it's just a movie. Why do you care? Why are you going to see this
Yeah,
movie?
yeah.
Why do you want to even comment on it?" It is important for us to talk about these things because politics is always downstream from culture. Like bigger concepts about feminism and bigger concepts about the role of women and men in American society are shaped, as silly as it sounds, by stupid things like the Barbie
Yeah.
movie and Ryan Gosling as Ken. And I hope more men adopt the Ryan Gosling as Ken situation. And so I just wanted to get your take on that, and maybe where there's a little bit of manufactured outrage, but also why it's still important to talk about the film.
Okay. Can I take this in a different direction a
Go
little
for it.
bit, deviating from that kind of specific question? I think overall, I was heartened by the culmination of it because what I saw, I think, was a lot of unintentional basedness. Like
Hmm.
I don't think any of that was intentional. I think it was just like I think they tried to make the wokest movie they could. Like I genuinely think that that was the attempt. But
Hmm.
where I get a good feeling inside and get to be optimistic about the future and society as a whole is I think in doing so they unintentionally highlighted some areas that everybody has in common, more people than not have in common, where you have like a political system, you have a structure that tries to like divide based on varying factors that nobody actually disagrees on. I think the unintentional like conservative elements of this kind of proved that more of the country is more together on a lot of issues than the media would seem or would make us believe. Like
Hmm.
I think a lot of like I don't know the marriage stuff, the like empowering women to do whatever they want to do, including be a stay-at-home mom. I think a lot of that unintentionally reinforced the idea that look, a lot of us have way more in common than we do different.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, going at it at that angle, I think that was like my ultimate takeaway of being optimistic about how close we actually are as opposed to divided like everyone wants to say. To answer your question why you should be talking about this, yeah, it was I think I said in that threads thing, it was overtly political. Like the
Mm-hmm.
point of the movie was political. If it's like some I don't know, just random movie about this or that, the other thing. Like, yeah, digging into it is not like that important, but like there was verbiage, there were themes, all of those things were intentionally put there to have a political, probably not the best word, cultural discussion. And so if that was the case, like, yeah, we would be doing ourselves a disservice to not have that discussion. Again,
Yeah.
like if this was like just I don't know, if it was a what's the Keanu Reeves movie that everybody loves where he just blows stuff up for 3 hours?
John Wick.
John Wick.
Hey, he's doing
So
it for a good reason. They killed his freaking dog, okay?
that's fine. That's fine. I guarantee you there are less intentional political undertones in that movie than there were in this. So we would be doing ourselves a disservice to not discuss the Barbie movie.
Yeah, I agree.
So
It's not like
that's my
showing up to
takeaway.
watch the Super Mario Brothers movie with Chris Pratt a few months ago, which was also a
Yeah,
great movie, but it
great
didn't have a
movie.
bigger impact on culture. I think when
Yeah.
you're talking about stuff like this, you're talking about a multi-generational movie because you're appealing to
Hmm.
30 and 40-year-olds who played with Barbie growing up, all the way down to their little girls that I saw in the movie theater. PSA, this isn't really a kids movie. I probably wouldn't bring a young child to this. There are just a lot of adult themes. It's not like inappropriate in any specific way, but there are a lot of adult
I don't
themes.
think
So
they
I would
get it.
probably skip it to bring your little kid. But generally speaking, I think these types of conversations about really stupid, inane, just mundane societal things like the movies and music videos
Mhm.
and album covers and fashion and all of these things, we tend to brush aside as conservatives far too often because it's not who's running for president or what's happening on the floor of Congress right now or what's the latest update to tax policy. Like, yes, those things are important, but ultimately, if you're trying to bring people along for the journey with you, and you want to change people's minds and meet them where they're at, go talk about and go see the movie that everybody is going to see and everybody is talking about, and have the opportunity to weigh in on culture there, which you always do a really phenomenal job doing, Joe Bob.
Thanks. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. This was a fun discussion.
Yes, it was. You are the best. And the more I talk about this movie, the more I darn like it. So I might have to go see it again and watch it through the lens of Joe Bob. I took notes so that I could go back and rewatch just in case. At least the soundtrack is absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
If you guys think that there's going to be a great parallel between real world and Fantasyland, not really. They're kind of all mumbo jumbo intertwined. Go watch Enchanted if you're looking for an actual separation between Fantasyland and real world. But if you're looking for a great soundtrack, really great costumes, really great set design, and either super woke or secretly based content, I guess the Barbie movie is for you. They advertised it as a movie for everyone, so I guess we're just unpacking that in real time. You guys, thank you so much for joining us on the stream. Joe Bob, really quick before we let you go,
Yo.
where can people find you and what's next for you in the next couple of months other than becoming a dad, which is so exciting?
All over the internet. Just type in JOBOB. Yeah, the dad thing is the thing I'm most excited about. But also, we're doing a fall tour of like 4 different stops. I think we're in San Diego area, Tulsa, Arkansas, and then Idaho. So, yeah,
Whoop,
just type in
whoop.
JOBOB pretty much anywhere. You'll be able to find me.
Wait,
And
where in
hope to
Idaho?
see Twin Falls, Idaho.
Nice. We love Twin Falls.
Yeah, it's a good
Idaho's
time.
a great state. I was born there. I don't know if you knew that.
I didn't know that,
There
but
you go.
that's good.
The
The free state of
Idaho. We
Idaho.
love to see it. You guys, go follow Joe Bob. He's the greatest human being ever. Joe Bob, we're going to let you go. Thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you.
us.